You didn't stop loving them, that's the part nobody understands. You loved them, you kept showing up. You drove the hours, made the calls, swallowed the comments, forgave the patterns, and told yourself next time will be different. And then one day, quietly, without a dramatic scene or a final argument, you just stopped. Not because you gave up. Because you finally ran out, and somehow. That decision, the most painful one you've ever made, is the one the world decided makes you the villain. Because we live in a culture that treats family like a moral obligation, not just a relationship, a duty. Blood is thicker than water, you don't abandon the people who raised you. These phrases get repeated so often they stop feeling like opinions and start feeling like facts. So when someone steps away from their family, the story writes itself before anyone asks a single question. They must be selfish, dramatic, ungrateful, the one who broke something sacred, but here's what that story gets completely wrong. The people who walk away are almost never the ones who stopped trying, they're the ones who tried the longest. Who sat at the same table year after year feeling invisible. Who had the same conversation 100 times hoping something would finally land differently. Who kept showing up not because it felt good, but because hope is one of the hardest things to let go of, especially when it's pointed at the people who were supposed to love you first. Estrangement almost never starts with an explosion, it starts with erosion, a slow, quiet wearing down that happens over years while everything on the surface still looks fine. The holiday photos still get taken. The birthday calls still happen, the smiles appear when they were supposed to, but underneath something is accumulating. Not one wound but hundreds of small ones, the comment that was never just a comment. The boundary that got pushed a little further every year, the moment you needed someone to choose you and they didn't. Psychologists call this emotional invalidation, the consistent experience of having your inner reality dismissed by the people who were supposed to help you build it. And its effects don't announce themselves. They settle in quietly, reshaping how safe you believe it is to need anything from anyone. What makes this so hard to explain to people who haven't lived it is that there's no single incident to point to. No obvious crime scene, just a pattern, a steady, persistent feeling that the real version of you, not the version that performed well and caused no friction. But the actual interior version was never quite welcome, and still people stay for years, sometimes decades. Partly out of love, partly out of obligation, and partly because leaving means grieving something you never fully had in the first place. That grief is its own specific kind of loss. You're not just mourning the relationship you're stepping back from. You're mourning the version of it that you always hoped might eventually exist. The parent who might have listened without making it about themselves. The sibling relationship that could have felt like safety. The family that might have let you belong without conditions. There's no funeral for that loss, no ritual. No casserole from a neighbor, no culturally recognized way to move through it, just a quiet, ongoing ache for something that was never quite real but somehow still hurts to release. Here's what surprises most people about this. Many individuals who eventually create distance from family describe something unexpected on the other side. Not happiness, not immediate relief, quiet, a kind of internal stillness they hadn't felt in years. Like a noise they learned to tune out had finally stopped. And they could hear their own thoughts without someone else's anxiety or criticism running underneath everything. That's what it feels like to put down something heavy you've been carrying so long you forgot it wasn't yours to carry. But distance isn't always the right answer, and it's worth being honest about that. Using avoidance as a default response to relational pain can become its own problem, a template that gets applied too broadly. Cutting off connection even when genuine safety is available. The question that matters isn't just whether a relationship hurts. It's whether the hurt comes from something that has proven it won't change, or something that simply hasn't been addressed directly yet. Only the person inside the relationship has enough context to know the difference. And that distinction matters more than any outside opinion ever could. What tends to stay with people long after the decision is guilt. That slow, Background noise guilt that follows you to other people's holiday dinners and shows up at random moments when you were not expecting it. And here's what that guilt actually means. It means you cared, it means you had love in you and it didn't have a safe place to land. People who don't care don't carry that weight. They leave without looking back, without second guessing. Without sitting in someone else's living room quietly wondering if they did the right thing. The guilt is not evidence of a wrong decision. It's evidence of how seriously you took it, how much you wanted it to work. Some people eventually reach a point where even the guilt fades. Where they stop reaching toward the door they've knocked on too many times. That makes sense too. There's only so long a person can extend themselves towards something unresponsive before that impulse runs out. That's not coldness, that's exhaustion that finally found its limit. What tends to grow in the space that opens up after the grief and guilt begin to settle is something quieter and more sustaining. People start asking questions they were never permitted to ask. What do I actually want? What does safety feel like for me? What kind of relationships am I trying to build for the first time? Choices stop being filtered through the need to manage someone else's reaction, and slowly what most people find isn't emptiness. It's the beginning of a chosen life, relationships built on genuine respect rather than shared history. Connection that isn't contingent on performance, a version of belonging that actually fits. If you've been carrying this story quietly, whether you race somewhere in the middle of the decision, years past it, or watching someone you love go through it, you are not as alone as it feels. These choices are made every day by people who loved deeply and still had to choose between that love and themselves. And choosing yourself after years of not doing it is not a small or simple thing. It is one of the hardest, most quietly brave things a person can do, if this reached something in you. Psychology Unpacked is built for exactly the kind of person who sits with these questions seriously. Subscribe if you want more psychology that actually explains the harder parts of being human. The next video might tell you even more about yourself than this one did.